A 6-year battle to keep his record shielded from the same scrutiny that every president has faced since the 1970s, House Democrats have voted to publicly release former President Donald Trump's tax returns. Members of the House Ways and Means Committee cast their votes along party lines last night following a 4-hour closed-door hearing on the matter. Although the full documents are not expected to be released for several days, the committee is already out with a 39-page summary of its findings. Here are some of the takeaways. In 4 of the 6 years reviewed, Trump reported a negative income to the IRS. His income was in the green in 2018 after his first full year as president, and again in 2019, before falling back into the red in 2020. In 3 of the 6 years reviewed, Trump paid $750 or less in federal income taxes. That includes 2020, where he paid $0. The committee also raises questions about IRS scrutiny of a substantial number of declarations made on the former president's returns, despite claiming millions of dollars in deductions from charitable donations. The committee writes that the IRS made no efforts to verify the legitimacy of Trump's claims, quote, even when no supporting documents were provided. Those and other alleged failures by the IRS to scrutinize Trump's returns are outlined in another new report from the committee. There, lawmakers write that the IRS only conducted an audit of Trump's tax returns once, despite it being mandatory every year for sitting presidents. Only after the committee launched its investigation into Trump's returns did the IRS take any steps to look further into the filings. In an internal memo, the agency claimed it did not have enough resources to examine all the potential issues in Trump's returns. That's one thing that's definitely true. There are issues. A lot of issues here. Let's bring in Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and Washington correspondent for the New York Times, Charlie Savage. Charlie, what are we learning so far? I know we have a 39-page summary. We'll learn a lot more soon. But is it perhaps the biggest thing he was hiding is that he was the biggest loser in terms of people who filed taxes? Or is it more? Is it sources of income that we're looking at?
Well, we only have some top-line numbers from those tax years starting at 2016 that the committee provided in this report. So this is very preliminary, and the raw documents are going to be put out sometime today or tomorrow, and I think there's going to be a big hive mind effort to make sense of it. But the early cut at these numbers do show, as you just showed on the screen, that of his 4 years in office, he basically paid no taxes for the first and fourth year. He did have some income in 2018 that allowed him to pay about $1 million in taxes because he had sold off some properties and had some capital gains taxes. And throughout that period, he was reporting making large charitable donations in cash. And the committee is flagging whether there is substantial support to show he actually made those contributions, or whether he was just putting numbers on the page and wanting the IRS to look at that. I think a larger takeaway here, though, is the other part of what you were getting into, which is the IRS has rules that say that sitting presidents and vice presidents must be audited every year. The IRS, under the Trump administration's control, did not do that in 2017, did not do that in 2018, and only started looking at the first of his tax returns in April 2019, the very same day that House Democrats on the Ways and Means Committee sent a request to the Treasury Department for data about his taxes and any associated audits. So there's clearly deep dysfunction at a minimum at the IRS in this auditing program. And that one of the reasons that's important is because the committee Democrats had said they were looking for these taxes because they needed to assess whether that program was strong enough, whether it needed to be strengthened, whether it was doing its job. And all along, Trump's lawyers and Republicans said that was just a pretext. It turns out there was something big there that they discovered.
So, Charlie, dysfunction is one thing, but could you explain the tenure of Charles Rettig, a California tax lawyer who Donald Trump appointed to head the IRS? He recently left the position, maybe was forced out of the position, whatever. But could you explain his role, his potential role in this, if any?
So we don't know. We talked last night to the commissioner of the IRS in 2017, who was running the agency when they should have done their first audit of Trump's taxes, because he was the sitting president in 2017, and he disclaimed knowledge. I didn't know about that program, or I wasn't involved. Could not explain why there was no audit that year. Then the gentleman you just mentioned took over in 2018. He had written a opinion column in 2016 as a tax lawyer in California, defending Trump's refusal to make public his tax returns as a presidential candidate, which broke with modern precedents, sort of post-Watergate norms. All major party presidential candidates release their finances. All sitting presidents do. Trump famously wouldn't. This guy said, oh, that's great, he shouldn't have to. And then Trump put him in charge of the IRS. So he certainly is going to probably face some questions from the Senate. I doubt that House Republicans, when they take over the chamber, will be interested in calling him starting next month.